Hello, now we are moved to another topic, and the topic that I'm going to expand is about realism. So, first of all, uh, let me going to a short introduction for myself to the audience. My name is Angwarana. I'm from Indonesia. In Indonesia, it's a country located in Southeast Asia, and now I study international relation in Bristol University in Warsaw, Poland. So realism is considered as one of the dominant theories in international relation. Realism is name given to a group of theories that appear in United States, U.S. It is theory that has long developed in the field of international relation. This theory was born after in the Second World War and in the beginning of the Cold War. Realism in international relation, also known as a political realism, is concerned with the role of states, national interests, and power in the political sector, and it focuses on fixed patterns of interaction in the uh, internal system, and that hasn't centralized authority. This kind this kind of internal relation is what we call as an anarchy. So realist has a fundamental assumption that the international state system is an anarchy, like Thomas Hobbes. Realists believe that the anarchy is an inherently unstable condition that requires international actors to guarantee their own survival through the accumulation power. And realism also tries to understand the historical persistence of war. Realism set of related theories of internal relation that emphasize the role of state, national interests, and the power in world politics. Realism has dominated the academic study of the international relation since the end of the World War II. Realists claim to offer both the most accurate explanation of state behavior and the set of policy uh, perception. The balance of power between state for ameliorating the inherent destabilizing elements of international affairs. Realism, including no realism, focus on bidding patterns of uh, interaction in international system, making a centralized political authority. That condition of anarchy means that the logic of international politics often differs uh, from the of domestic politics, which is regulated by sovereign power. Realists are generally pessimistic about different uh, pessimistic about the possibility of radical system reform, and realism is born tradition of thought that comprises is a variety of different strands, the most distinctive of which are classical realism and neo-realism. Here I have two divisions of realism, and I will gonna explain it each by each. And the first The first division is a classical realism. It appeared after the Second World War ended. Classical realism theory carries out of a pessimistic view of human nature and argues that basically humans are not that kind, because actually they are selfish and act out of fear or aggression. This classical realist theory is associated with thinkers such as Thomas Hobbes and Hans Morgenthau. According to Hans Morgenthau work, he argues that that the states pursue power and security at the expense of one another. Then followed by Thomas Hobbes, who argues that humans are aggressive and greedy entities unless they are controlled by some by control by some form of dominant rule or government or maybe authority. Hobbes also had an argument that a society without without hegemon to enforce order would be naturally unstable because each individual is capable of killing other individuals. Both Morgante and Hobbes agree that humans are cruel, such as the beast in the state of nature. So, in brief, classical realists agree that human nature is important thing for understanding a conflict a co- for understanding a conflict and war, since there is no higher power in international system under an anarchy international system, and also the states are unrestrained and free to express their human need for free to free to express their human nature, and in the end, classical realists conclude that war is natural product of low human nature, which operate in ungoverned and therefore insecure international environment. And the second is structural realism, or we can call neo-realism. It emerged in 1917, not much different with the classical realism, of course. The structural realism will also explain the persistence of war. However, it will more focus on systemic rather than individual causes, like human nature. It means if in a classical, it means classical realism, the cause of war is human nature. And in structural realism, it will be the anarchist structure of internal realism itself, international system itself. The famous the famous structuralism figure called Nay Kenneth Waltz. Waltz emphasized that the states are victims of security dilemma. Security dilemma itself means a situation when the action taken by a state to increase its security for ensuring its survival will threaten security of neighboring states. According to self-help concept, Waltz argues that the only rational action for a form aggression in this case, state may invest in enemies, armies, navies, and new weapons or look for alliance with the other state. However, this action or whole self-defense will look like threatening or the surrounding states because of there is a suspicion from one to another. and in the end, this condition will force other states to do the same as a response. They will do their own self-help strategy, which it's more or less same increasing their military capacity or making an alliance with others. And and here I have concept and assumption of realism. Firstly, statism. In statism, realists assume that state is the main actor in international politics. The influence of non-state actors seems to be ignored by realists because non-state as actors have limited power, especially in military capacity to threaten the state actors. So that non non non-state actors will still rely on their own state to make sure their survival in anarchy's internal system. And the second is survival. The realists believe that survival is the main goal of any international arena. They believe that the state lives in a system where there's no hierarchically superior on coercive power that can settle disputes and enforce the law. There's no higher security. There's no higher authority. I'm sorry, that the state can rely on if they are on tribal. In this case, realists assume that the only power can help them by state to survive in the system of like anarchy. So that because of that, the anarchy system realists still and being argue that the states will do everything they can in order to be as a powerful as possible to ensure the survival under anarchy system. And the third is self-help. The absence of a higher authority causes unstable condition and the lack of order in internal system. Due to this condition, realists emphasize that the states can only depend. And here I have concept and assumption of realism. Firstly, statism. Statism. In statism, realists assume that state is the main actor in international politics. The influence of non-state actors seems to be ignored by realists because non-state as actors have limited power, especially in military capacity to threaten the state actors. So that non non non-state actors will still rely on their own state to make sure their survival in anarchy's internal system. And the second is survival. The realists believe that survival is the main goal of any international arena. They believe that the state lives in a system where there's no hierarchically superior on coercive power that can settle disputes and enforce the law. There's no higher security. There's no higher authority. I'm sorry, that the state can rely on if they are on tribal. In this case, realists assume that the only power can help them by state to survive in the system of like anarchy. So that because of that, the anarchy system realists still and being argue that the states will do everything they can in order to be as a powerful as possible to ensure the survival under anarchy system. And the third is self-help. The absence of a higher authority causes unstable condition and the lack of order in internal system. Due to this condition, realists emphasize that the states can only depend. So this is the end of the video. I hope you guys understand about the realism theory and the concept. And what the basic of realism, the meaning of realism, and the division then the two division of realism. I try my best to help you guys understanding the meaning of realism. So thank you for watching.